My daughter told me to stay out of her business. Right there in front of her employees. She said I was old, outdated, and had nothing to offer. The words hit harder than I expected. I just smiled, nodded, and walked out. She had no idea the entire time she was talking down to me, I was already in her business as the silent investor who built it from the ground up. So when her brilliant consultant tried to destroy her company, I didn't argue. I just pulled the strings. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. The aroma of hazelnut coffee, usually a morning ritual of peace, turned acrid in my nostrils. My daughter, Ilara, stood before me in her new pet boutique, the Pampered Paw, her arms crossed, her pretty face contorted in a sneer. "Dad," she said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass, "I appreciate the thought, truly, but please stay out of my business. This is my store, my dream, and frankly, your outdated advice is doing more harm than good. You just wouldn't understand." A young assistant, arranging gourmet dog treats, paused, a faint smirk playing on her lips. My chest tightened, a cold knot forming where my heart usually beat. The sting of her words, delivered with such public disdain, left me utterly breathless, a ghost in my own daughter's domain. That evening, the scene replayed in my mind on an endless, cruel loop. Stay out of my business. It wasn't just the cutting words, but the dismissive flick of her wrist, the calculated public spectacle. My dear wife, Clara, tried to offer comfort, her hand gentle on my arm, but the wound was too fresh, too deep. As I stared out at the twilight painting the sky in hues of bruised purple and gray, a thought, cold and unsettling, began to coalesce. Ilara had no idea just how intricately in her business I actually was. A quiet anger, simmering beneath my usual placid demeanor, started to churn. 6 months prior, Ilara had burst into our living room, a whirlwind of youthful ambition, her eyes alight with her vision for the Pampered Paw. Her business plan, while passionate, was financially precarious. My heart ached to support her without overstepping. I'd quietly approached an old acquaintance, a shrewd but reputable venture capitalist named Mr. Caldwell, asking him to act as an intermediary. I funneled a substantial sum, enough to secure her prime location and initial high-quality inventory, through him. My only condition was absolute anonymity. The thrill of being her silent guardian, her unseen foundation, had been a secret joy. A few weeks after Ilara's cutting dismissal, I began my subtle inquiries. "How's the store coming along?" I'd ask casually. She'd glow, recounting tales of her brilliant and mysterious benefactor who believed in her vision implicitly. Clara, always observant, mentioned Ilara excitedly sharing how this investor pushed for rapid expansion, almost aggressively so. A prickle of unease ran down my spine. Ilara's description of this benefactor, demanding, driven, focused solely on growth, didn't align with my intention for quiet, supportive backing. Something felt wrong, a discordant note in the symphony of her success. Soon, a new figure entered Ilara's orbit, a man introduced as Julian Vance, a self-proclaimed boutique business strategist. He was charismatic, impeccably dressed, with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Ilara gushed about his innovative ideas and how he was streamlining everything. He seemed ever-present at the Pampered Paw, whispering in her ear, directing staff, his presence almost colonial. I watched him from the coffee shop across the street, nursing a lukewarm latte, a cold dread seeping into my bones. He was too polished, too eager to assert control. My observations grew more disturbing.
The artisanal, organic pet foods Ilara had painstakingly sourced were slowly replaced by cheaper, mass-produced brands. The knowledgeable, passionate staff she'd hired, many of whom were loyal friends, were subtly eased out, replaced by inexperienced, lower-wage workers. Ilara, swept up in Julian's narrative of efficiency, seemed oblivious. But I knew her heart, her original vision. This wasn't her. This was the mark of Julian Vance, systematically eroding the soul of her dream, brick by cynical brick.
Then the inevitable happened. A local investigative reporter broke a story. The Pampered Paw was implicated in a scandal involving a particular brand of imported pet treats linked to a sudden rash of animal illnesses. Sales plummeted overnight. Ilara was devastated, publicly issuing tearful apologies, bewildered as to how such a product could have infiltrated her inventory. She blamed supply chain vulnerabilities, but I knew with chilling certainty. That tainted brand was one of the cut-rate replacements Julian Vance had championed. The crisis was manufactured, a step in his calculated plan. A call from Mr. Caldwell, my venture capitalist friend, arrived, his voice tinged with genuine panic. He revealed that Julian Vance was in fact Julian Thorne, a notorious corporate raider operating under various aliases. Thorne specialized in identifying promising small businesses, then leveraging their potential to drain their assets and leave the founders destitute. Caldwell admitted he'd been duped, that Thorne had manipulated him into unknowingly fronting his predatory schemes. My blood ran cold. Ilara wasn't just being exploited, she was on the verge of losing absolutely everything. I found Ilara later that week, huddled in her office, the weight of the scandal and plummeting sales crushing her. Her usually vibrant spirit was extinguished, replaced by raw despair. She confessed her growing suspicions about Julian, how he'd aggressively pushed her to take out hefty loans against the store's dwindling assets, promising a swift recovery. She felt trapped, ashamed, utterly alone. My heart ached, a physical pain, but I held back from revealing my secret. The timing for the truth had to be perfect, impactful, and undeniable. Armed with irrefutable evidence provided by Mr. Caldwell, detailed records of Julian Thorne's past corporate raids, his shell companies, and the specific terms of Ilara's manipulated loans, I confronted him, not as Ilara's father, but as a deep-pocketed individual with a keen interest in the Pampered Paw's solvency. We met in a sterile, glass-walled coffee shop. "Mr. Vance," I began, my voice calm, "I believe you've rather underestimated the true breadth of Ilara's original backing." His arrogant scoff faltered as I slid a dossier across the table. "You see," I continued, "I know your game, Thorne. Every single unethical move." I then discreetly contacted the journalist who had broken the initial story about the tainted pet treats. She was a tenacious young woman, keen for a bigger scoop. I presented her with an anonymous tip, a digital trail of breadcrumbs leading directly to Julian Thorne's past corporate misdeeds and his current predatory actions against the Pampered Paw. I provided her with irrefutable documentation, meticulously curated by Mr. Caldwell. Initially skeptical, her journalistic instincts ignited when she saw the depth of the deception and the vulnerability of small business owners like Ilara. The follow-up exposé hit the digital wire like a thunderclap. A searing article detailing Julian Thorne's modus operandi,
complete with testimonials from his previous victims, painting a devastating picture of his asset-stripping empire. The piece meticulously outlined his manipulation of the pampered paw, his deliberate introduction of substandard products, and his financial predatory schemes. The public outcry was immediate and immense. Julian Thorne's carefully constructed facade shattered, his reputation reduced to digital dust. His illicit operations began to unravel under the weight of public scrutiny and impending legal action. Ilara, reeling from the public exposure of Julian Thorne, was still struggling to comprehend the wreckage. Her store was silent, sales decimated. I walked into her office, a solemn expression on my face. "Ilara," I began, my voice gentle but firm, "there's something fundamental you need to understand about your business and who truly believed in it from the start." I placed a thick, sealed envelope on her desk. Inside were the original investment documents, meticulously detailing my anonymous contribution and the safeguards I had put in place. Her eyes widened, scanning the legal terms, then fixed on my name. You were the benefactor?" she whispered, her voice barely a breath. Tears streamed down Ilara's face, blurring the edges of the room. The full weight of her past dismissiveness, her hurtful words, and my unwavering, silent support crashed down upon her. She collapsed into her chair, her voice choked with raw emotion. "Dad, I am so sorry. How could I have been so foolish, so blind?" The emotional release was palpable, a tidal wave of regret and understanding. She finally grasped the depth of my love, the extent of my sacrifice, and the magnitude of her own misguided arrogance. It was a cleansing moment, a profound and necessary reckoning. With Julian Thorne exposed and facing imminent legal consequences, and my financial backing now openly acknowledged, the pampered paw began its slow, arduous journey of rebuilding. Ilara, profoundly humbled and deeply grateful, transformed into a mature, collaborative business owner. We worked side by side, restoring the store's reputation, reinstating the high-quality products, and rehiring her original, dedicated staff. The story ends with a shot of the pampered paw thriving once more, its windows sparkling, filled with happy customers and healthy pets. Ilara, radiant with genuine joy, gently places a grand reopening sign in the window. She looks at me, her eyes brimming with love and newfound respect, and simply says, "Thank you, Dad, for absolutely everything." The unspoken understanding between us was a testament to a bond not just restored, but forged anew, stronger and deeper than ever before.